Fear not, I say, fear not. The sounds which come from this place should not frighten you. How do you do, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, and people and friends? I am the professor, Julius Sumner Miller, and we do physics.
I'm about to say something that might sound disrespectful. I learned more from this man than I ever did from my teacher. Not because my teachers were bad, they cared, but this man made me curious, and curiosity changes everything. If you grew up in Canada watching the Hilarious House of Frightenstein, you already know who I'm talking about. You can probably hear his voice right now. This man quietly shaped how an entire generation of Canadian kids learned to think, and we need to talk about him. This is the professor from the Hilarious House of Frightenstein. Wild hair, lab coat, a workbench covered in wires and beakers. And that voice, loud, enthusiastic, almost manic, asking one question over and over, why is it so? If you just heard that in his voice, you know. While Billy Van played vampires and Vincent Price introduced sketches, the professor was doing something completely different. He was teaching real science, actual physics, in the middle of the weirdest kids show ever made. And here's the thing, he wasn't just a character, he was real. His name was Julius Sumner Miller, a real physicist who believed something radical. Kids can understand complex ideas if you let them wonder first. He performed experiments demonstrating Newton's laws, the Bernoulli effect, electrostatics, real science presented with genuine enthusiasm. He didn't dumb it down. He made it exciting by showing how strange and beautiful science actually is. And here's what made him different from school. He never said, remember this for the exam. He just said, look at this. Isn't that interesting? In school, science was facts to memorize. The professor made it mysteries to solve. One approach makes you a good test taker. The other makes you a thinker. That phrase, why is it so, wasn't a catchphrase. It was a philosophy. He wasn't asking for the right answer. He was inviting you into the mystery. For kids who didn't feel smart in school, who struggled with tests, who got told they weren't good at science, that question felt like permission. Permission to be curious. Permission to ask questions. Permission to not know and still be part of the conversation. The professor didn't make you feel dumb for not understanding. He made you feel smart for wondering. That's a gift a lot of us never got in a traditional classroom. Here's what made the professor's segments brilliant. You didn't realize you were learning. No worksheets, no tests, no pressure, just experiments. Some worked, some didn't. And when things failed, he didn't hide it. He'd laugh, adjust, try again. He celebrated the messiness of discovery. In school, failure meant a bad grade. It meant you weren't smart enough. The professor taught us the opposite. Failure meant you were experimenting. You were learning. Fast forward to today. We talk about kids being distracted, about attention spans shrinking. But maybe the problem isn't that kids can't focus. Maybe we stopped asking, why is it so? We turned learning into a checklist instead of discovery. Julius Sumner Miller didn't compete with distractions. He became the curiosity. I'll be honest with you. Looking back now, I don't remember every experiment the professor did. I couldn't recite Newton's laws from memory if you asked me. I don't remember the specific demonstrations or the exact science he explained. But you know what I do remember? How he made me feel. He made learning feel alive. He made science feel like an adventure, not a chore. He made me believe that asking questions was more important than knowing answers. And that feeling, that sense of curiosity, that permission to wonder, that stayed with me longer than any test, any grade, any memorized formula ever did. That's why I can honestly say, I learned more from this man than from my teacher. Not because my teachers didn't matter, they did, but because curiosity mattered more, and the professor taught me how to be curious. Julius Sumner Miller passed away in 2007 at the age of 97. Outside of educational circles, most people never heard the news. There were no major headlines in mainstream media, no national tributes. The world moved on. But his impact didn't fade. Every time someone asks why, instead of just memorizing what they're told, that's his legacy. Every Canadian who still hears that voice in their head, who still remembers that wild hair and that enthusiasm, that's his legacy. Every kid who learned to love science not because they had to, but because someone made it interesting, that's his legacy. The professor didn't just teach physics, he taught curiosity. And curiosity is the foundation of everything. Curiosity is what makes us keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep learning long after school ends. That's what Julius Sumner Miller gave us, and we should remember that. So let me ask you something. Did the professor make you love science too? Or at least, did he make you curious? Because if he did, you're not alone. There's an entire generation of Canadians who feel the same way. And maybe it's time we remembered the teachers, the real teachers, who didn't just tell us what to think, but taught us how to think. The ones who made us wonder, the ones who celebrated our questions, the ones who made learning feel like discovery instead of a chore. Julius Sumner Miller was one of those teachers. And for millions of Canadian kids, he did it from a TV screen in the middle of the weirdest show ever made. Why is it so? That question still matters. Maybe now more than ever.
Water. Now what? Remember, air is highly compressible. Water is highly incompressible. And here lies the secret. You push down on the stopper. You compress the air in there, which pressure is delivered to the water in there, which is delivered to the water in there, which compresses the air in the little chamber, and more water goes in. The system is now heavier, and he goes down. Release the load on the stopper, and he goes up. Now, if you watch very sharply, closely, you will see that when you push on the stopper, this air gets less. And when he is down here like that, and there is water in him like that, and that's air in there,